Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the International Coaches Roundtable podcast. This week you are with hosts Sasha and Neha as they interview our special guest, Deborah Donenfeld, who is a life coach working with women in midlife who are experiencing a complete life change. She empowers them to move through this with dignity and grace. And well, let me tell you, this episode is incredible. So go ahead, catch a seat, and we'll see you guys at the table.
Welcome to International Coaches Roundtable podcast. My name is Neha. I am a life and law of attraction coach. Today, I'm here with my co-host Sasha, and we have an incredible guest, Deborah Donenfeld. She is an incredible life coach who specializes in working with women with midlife and especially the big changes and transition. So let me just pass it on to Sasha, who would let us know more about today's episode.
Thanks, Neha. Hi, guys. Welcome back to ICR. We have now had a few episodes under our belt, and we're so excited again to be welcoming you back with this conversation where we start to talk about transitions and what comes with transitions, right? So Deborah works with clients who may be going through a big change or a big transition in their life, and with that change, sometimes comes anxiety and overwhelm. And we're going to really just touch on a lot of those topics today to see what she has to say, to see if she can give us some good advice, even for us as listeners and hosts for our future experience. So I'm going to pass it over to Deborah. Welcome, Deborah. Thank you so much for showing up today for us. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. Could you just give us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Sure. I'm a life coach. My business is photosynthesis coaching. And I like to say that I work with women in midlife who are starting over. More, I went through it myself, and I've seen it so many times, women in situations where they thought that they were settled, even if they weren't necessarily, didn't have everything figured out and weren't completely happy in every aspect of their life. They felt like they were moving forward, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under them, and they just feel like they have to completely start over at a moment when they didn't expect to. And so, this can be all different kinds of transitions, and some people may be going through one big transition that feels really overwhelming, and other people may be having a lot of different things that they are finding are all coming to an end, and they have to regroup in every area of their life. So those are generally the people that I work with.
Wow, thank you so much for, really pinpointing that for me, because when I had first talked with you, we talked about, transition and change, and to really narrow down your clientele that, your niche really is working with people in their midlife who are feeling like, they are having that rug pulled out from underneath them, and just working with trying to help them to figure out, okay, what's next. So knowing that that's your clientele, that really helps us to really have a good conversation about the people that you probably would want to connect with the most. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a feeling. If you are overwhelmed by the transition, it doesn't have to be what I went through or what somebody else is going through. Like big transitions are hard. And you may, I've worked with people who are heading into retirement, which is maybe a choice that they've made, but it still feels like a really, really big and difficult transition, and their whole world is being upended. Even if they're the ones who are doing it, then the other people who are like going through a divorce that they wouldn't have expected. And then, yet others like me who had like a financial aspect, a divorce, and a career change, and losing my home, that that was all happening at once. So that can happen too. But I think the key is, how do you feel as you're going through this transition? Do you feel like you're sort of skipping through a field of flowers? Or do you feel like, wow, this is overwhelming, and I'm not even sure what to do with all of these feelings, and I'm not sure how to get through it. I don't even know what the tools are, or I've forgotten what all my tools are because I'm so anxious or stressed out or sad or whatever it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very good point, because even as a coach, so many times in life, I have felt various emotions. Could be because of some big changes happening in the life, even if the changes are for good. And for me, it gets very difficult to differentiate between certain emotions. And those emotions are usually feeling overwhelmed or being anxious, or am I scared? And I'm sure
Right.
many of us, go through this phase wherein it's not even easy to define it to a person that, oh, I'm anxious or am I overwhelmed? And someone just comes on my face, oh, you're just scared. So it's like, okay, what is the real emotion inside me? So
That's
what
right.
would you like to suggest, to people like me, I would say?
Right. Well, I mean, I think also even sometimes emotions like excitement and anxiety can be very close. And if
Yep.
you're used to or expecting to feel anxious, you might say, I'm so anxious or I'm stressed out. And upon digging in, we might find actually, I'm really kind of excited.
Yeah.
And so sometimes
So
even
true.
that kind of thing will happen. I do really dig deep into the emotions in my practice, helping people to really dissect and get in touch with what are you feeling even on the body level? What are the sensations in the body that accompany this feeling you're having that's hard to name? And as we go through that, it becomes easier to name it and to figure out what it is. And sometimes we come with, I'm feeling anxious. I'm
Yeah.
feeling so anxious. And as we dig and we really put our attention on it and on the body and what we're feeling in the body and what is coming up around that emotion, we realize there's actually something else underneath that emotion. We all have our go-to emotions that are a little bit easier to feel than others. For some people, anger might be really easier to feel for whatever reason, but then they'll skip right over something like shame and go right to anger. And then we have to kind of dig a little to find out, well, actually, there's a little shame in there that was somebody else doesn't
Wow.
want to feel anger at any
Very
cost
interesting
and
point.
goes directly to sadness or something. And so then so it's all a part of becoming emotionally aware, becoming self-aware, so that you can actually communicate what is going on with yourself, both communicating with yourself and having that relationship with yourself and communicating effectively with other people, because
Yeah.
it's very hard to communicate when you don't actually, you think you know what you're feeling and what's going on, but you don't have that awareness.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful point, because now I can relate. At times, there is so much of emotional imbalance inside us that we just don't know how to react to a situation or how to make the other person understand what we are actually going through. And it's more
Right.
like unawareness is at our end. So like I'm really interested to know, Deborah, that how did you thought of becoming a coach and picking up this as a niche, because this is like pretty interesting and it's intense. And
Yeah,
if I'm not wrong, you're also a photographer.
I am a photographer. Yep.
Oh, I have seen your website. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank
She was
you.
raving about it before we met.
Oh, that's
Yes.
that's so nice. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
So
So how did
Yeah.
everyone should
switch?
check that out.
Yeah, you
Well,
have to.
excellent. Yeah. I mean, who knew I was going to get a little plug for my photography? That's great. Yeah, I worked as a photographer. I still work as a photographer also, many years, like 30 years. Um, at one point, something came into my inbox about health coaching, and I thought, oh, that sounds totally up my alley. And then I thought, my second thought was, but what is it? you know so I started that was a while ago. That was maybe 12 years ago. I maybe more. I started exploring different health coaching programs, and I did one and I got certified, but I kind of put it away. Like, I had a couple of clients, but I was a photographer and that was my main thing that I was doing. I was really pursuing that. And over the pandemic, or a little bit before the pandemic, I started thinking, I think I would really, really like to explore coaching more. And I got a broader certification through ICF. Now, what happened in between is that my marriage ended. Right as we were about to separate, I found out that my husband's business had completely tanked, and I was earning something in my photography business, but not enough to support myself and my kids. So there was zero money in his business account, and he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So I had expected to stay in our apartment with my children, but now clearly that was not going to happen. And we sold our apartment. I moved into a rental with my kids, and that was the beginning of just scrambling and trying to figure out how I was going to put food on the table, building my business, doing odd jobs, and looking for full-time work because I wasn't able to support us all on what I was bringing in with my photography. So it was a very, very stressful, anxiety-ridden time. And that's sort of my rug being pulled out from under me and starting over, which, I managed to call upon all the tools that I had been learning over the years. Who knew that this was what I was learning them for? But I used everything I could. I worked really, really hard, and I used every tool, and I leaned in really hard to the soft skills, to the energetic practices and spiritual practices and therapy and self-help books and talking with friends and writing, journaling, and doing yoga and doing everything I could at the same time as I was pursuing those more pragmatic things. And I got to the other side of it. I did get a full-time job. I gained some stability. I managed to pay the rent and put food on the table every night. And now I just feel like this was such an intense experience for me that I really want to help other people who are going through this so that they can do it with a little bit more grace than I did. Knowing sort of it would have been so wonderful to have a guide during it. And so that's why that's sort of like the journey there, and why I kind of want to serve this clientele.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you. That was so open. It takes a lot to be able to share a story in general, just because there's always, even if we're, 5 years down the road past the experience, there's these emotional ties still that can sometimes sneak up. And so to just honor the fact that you're doing the service to people by, sharing your story, and not only that, but also reaching out to maybe find people who were like you that might be going through the same thing, so that way you can encourage them to, to get through, and that it's going to be okay. So my question is that, what would you say to somebody, who was you back then, who was going through something very similar to what you went through, in their own unique way? What would you say to them if they were right here, right now, listening to you about their situation?
What I would say is similar to what I kept saying to myself at the time, which is I know that there is no real growth in life without pain. And this may be a really, really painful situation. But on the other side of it, and this is sort of a funny way of saying it, but I said it to myself this way, you're going to be so big. You are growing so much that you wouldn't be able to have this growth if you didn't go through this pain. And just trust. Remember to trust the process, trust yourself that you are going to bring yourself out of it, trust the universe or life or God or whatever your belief is, that this is happening to bring you to your greatest good, to bring you into a place where you are accessing your higher self and the best you can be in this life. And you wouldn't be able to access that if you didn't go through some really painful situations.
Wow. Yeah. That is absolutely, truly beautiful to hear, even from a person who is not in their midlife, who is currently not going through any big changes. I almost could just feel as if I was when you were talking. So that means something, I think.
And
So-
everybody goes through changes, right? Like, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
talking to people in midlife because that was my experience. But honestly, we go through so many changes, even through our childhood, and definitely in our 20s and in our 30s for sure, and beyond.
Yes.
So it's a human
Yes.
experience, really.
Absolutely. And the fact that you specialize, with women, in their midlife, because maybe that's just what you have been so closely related to, because that was the experience that you went through, does not necessarily mean, though, that someone who resonates with you, who's not in their midlife, I'm sure, could not reach out to you. I'm sure that you would be open,
Yeah, absolutely.
to
Yes, and
hearing
I've worked
from
with
someone.
men before. I've worked with young people. I've worked with older, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because like you say, it is a very human experience, transition, change, what have you. So
Right.
with that, what kinds of tools and techniques then do you give your clients who are going through something like this in their life?
Right.
What kind of things do you, help them to do?
Yeah. So, it's a great question. Some of the things I mentioned, I will say that everybody is different. And so some of my, every coaching session ends with some kind of an action or tools that people could use that can help them. Some people who are very, very, very action oriented, like almost too much, my action will be more, let's spend some time not doing. Right. Like sometimes that is helpful for certain people, and some people really do need accountability to get some certain things done. But in terms of tools for sort of getting through difficult moments, I can say that in my most anxious moment, there was only one tool that I was able to access, and that was the breath. To be conscious of the breath, to try to make my breathing deeper, because it was very shallow in my most like fearful and anxiety ridden times. Sometimes all I could access was the breath. But some other tools that are pretty much constants are journaling every day and meditating every day.
Yeah.
I have a yoga practice. Some people like to run or to walk. It was, if you can do it in a mindful way, everybody has the thing that they know brings them to a place of more peace. I find that journaling is incredibly helpful to help me process whatever is going on.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I think I mentioned there were other things. I mean, I was in therapy. Therapy was really helpful. My yoga practice was really helpful. I'm trying to think of what else I use and what else I give to people. I mean, I often will give writing assignments very specifically. There's actually an exercise that I really love, and I think it's a really powerful tool, which is to write to your fear.
Yes.
And then let your fear write back to you.
Yeah.
So, or to whatever emotion is coming up. That can be super, super helpful to people.
Absolutely.
So those are a few of the things that I use. Yeah.
Writing is something that I have been practicing. Even in law of attraction, we say that when you put your thoughts on papers, that's how you manifest.
Yeah.
And coming back to the question, Sasha, you asked, I personally, and I totally relate to the breathing exercise, especially when you are anxious. So I heard this term that we suffer more in our thoughts as compared to what's there in reality. So usually we get anxious when we are going ahead and thinking too much. And many times it happens that, we usually go ahead and there are too many thoughts. We don't know what to do. And it is just getting overwhelming. You are getting anxious at the same time. And then you have this fear, you have all the emotions and you don't know what to do with them. I have personally tried it with me and my clients. There's a technique called grounding. And that is about just activating your 5 senses. So what you're supposed to do is, let's imagine that I'm just thinking too much and I just want to get into this space right now. So I'm just going to activate my 5 senses. And I would be like, okay, Neha, so what are the 5 things that you can see, hear, touch, feel, and taste, right? The moment you allow yourself to do that, for sure, you would just come back as in like in this particular space.
Right.
And
Because your brain can't be in too many places at once.
Absolutely. Right.
Yes.
And this is called grounding. And the moment you feel that, okay, now I'm here, just get up and do something, right? Maybe walk, run, talk, do something different. And that's how you control your thoughts.
Yeah,
So
that's a beautiful exercise. I'm going to steal that one.
I've tried that and it works wonders. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've done that myself as well. Actually, I mean, I've done something very similar to the exercise you spoke on, Deb, with the writing to your fear and having the fear right back. And that was, I randomly had this just feeling to do it. No one actually told me to do it necessarily. It was just kind of a moment of journaling, and I was like, I feel like I want to do this. So it's
You
never
really
been,
went with your intuition.
yeah, I just
Awesome.
kind of went with it. And so it's cool to hear that it's actually a technique that you use. So that's very, very, very cool. But yeah, it was very a powerful experience for me. And then also the technique that you mentioned, Neha, I've also tried that. And that is also a very powerful technique that I've experienced as well. So both of those are great. I do want to ask now, so with these different techniques, when you're suggesting these things to your clients, what is what's the word, reaction that you sometimes get from clients after they give this a try?
Usually they find it helpful. Sometimes they don't do it. So that's always interesting, right, to explore. Sometimes people say, you know what, this one isn't for me. I have a client who actually doesn't like to write. And so we then sort of tweak it and find another way and something that really resonates for him more. But I find generally that people find it helpful. They come back with things that they've discovered, or ways that they brought it into their life over the previous week, that they kept returning to it in their minds, and whatever it was. So I do find that people find it helpful. And I think also sometimes when you're just so overwhelmed, you want to be given a task to do.
Right.
Because I think it is grounding, and it also makes you feel like you can do something proactive in this situation that feels out of control. It gives you a way of actually controlling something.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
I have a question. Like I come across this situation with my clients many a times, and I don't know whether it's a midlife crisis or it's just because something is going only in your personal life. That's how you feel. So many times I've heard this. So usually with women, it happens that, you get married, you have things on your plate already, and then you have a baby, and then that's another thing on top of it. Then you have your work, and unfortunately, if you do not have a supportive family, it just gets too much. And that's what my observation is, that when already things are just not in your control and you are running after to take the entire control, it just gets overwhelming. You start looking, you just place everything under the microscope, and you just start picking up everything which is not going right at the same time. So what would be the possible solutions in those scenarios? Because I'm sure all of us would go through that situation once in lifetime, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's important to, it seems like a really good situation to look back and see what were your childhood methods of coping. Because what is it about of needing to control everything, or not being able to ask for help, or nobody can do it the way I do it, so I'm just going to have to do it myself? All of these kinds of things, what is that stemming from? And if we can identify what it's stemming from, we can then make a choice. oh, I see what I'm doing. Now I understand I'm doing this because I feel this way, or because this is how I used to cope with things. But I don't actually necessarily need to do it that way now. And now I can make a choice. Do I want to do it that way? Do I want to do it the same way I've always done it? Or do I want to do it a little differently? Right? Because those things are the things that come up when you're in in an anxious situation, or a fear of, or a situation of overwhelm. All of that stuff comes in, and you go right into your habits.
Yeah.
So what is a habit? What is really necessary? What can you let go of? And now what do you want to do? What do you want to choose to do? And what do you want to choose not to do? If you want to do it all and that's you're making that choice, well, you're making that choice.
Yes. Yeah. If you come to a place of at least you're aware enough that you have a choice, that it's not just something that you have to automatically do because it's the story that you've been telling yourself for 50 years or however, or 10 years or whatever, or people told you that you are good at this one thing, and so maybe you just should do this one thing, or oh well, love and relationships, you're supposed to make them work, and these are the stories that people I feel like agree to. They choose that agreement, but we don't know that we're choosing that agreement until we bring some kind of awareness to it, that it's actually a choice, that we can define our story, we can recreate it as well. Yeah.
That's right. Even our emotions. Sometimes if you really sort of sit back and look and sort of observe yourself, you might realize that actually I'm feeling this way out of habit, because I always feel this way when this kind of thing happens. But I'm not actually sure I really do feel that way anymore.
Yes.
Right? So yeah, really kind of trying to be the observer of your own life, your own inner life.
Yeah. That really helps. I feel like people take back some of that control, and so that way when they are in a situation that feels very insecure because a big change is happening or is about to happen, just knowing that you yourself can bring awareness to what you're feeling, and also you can create your story that gives you a sense of, all right, okay, maybe I do got this. And you actually said this earlier in the conversation, it gives people a sense of like, okay, when everything feels uncontrollable, the one thing I can control is myself, and like, and just be paying attention.
Right. You can focus on the things that you can't control, then you really feel out of control. Or you can say, okay, there's a lot I can't control. What can I control?
Right. I think that just reminds me of one word, and it's like just echoing right now. It's acceptance. So, like acceptance is one of the most powerful words. The moment you accept your situation, your current phase, your reality, everything just gets very normal. So now, and I really like that idea of, sitting down and just thinking about, okay, where is this coming from? And this will only happen if I accept that, okay, maybe one fine day I realized, okay, why am I getting angry so much these days? Why is this small thing just, making me feel like this? So for that, I have to first accept that, yes, I am getting angry unnecessarily. Right. And I think that's the first step, to just go ahead and accept what you are doing and what the situation is. And then comes, okay, I need to accept this is the situation right now. What can we just do to just, make it better?
So what can I do and what can I let go of?
Yeah.
What can I?
Yes. And I love that a lot of these different episodes have some common core like themes that kind of run throughout the whole coaching experience, which is kind of like just figuring out, what are your limiting beliefs? What are the things that you are agreeing to that's not actually yours? And what can you hold on to, and what can you even create for yourself that really does serve you?
That's
into
right.
your future. And so we are running out of time, actually. I just want to make sure, Neha, do you have any other important questions that you want to ask Deb? Anything that's just burning for
I would
you?
like to continue this conversation because I am really liking this
I
concept,
know.
the topic that we are talking. Thank you so much, Deb, because this is just so intense. It's making me think so much now,
Oh, wow. That's great. Yes.
I think, yeah, I'm really in my
Well,
thoughts right now.
anytime. I love to talk about this. It's
Oh, yeah.
fascinating to me and interesting, and find it very connecting too.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, me
And
too. Me too. Was there anything that you were really excited about doing this podcast with us? I know it's a very new podcast that we're starting, together as coaches, getting together and just talking about all these different things that people may have challenges with and how we can help. But for you personally, was there anything that drew you in at all?
I think I was mainly drawn in by your enthusiasm and just the whole idea of it, of a podcast of coaches talking about their different areas of expertise and the clients that they help. And then anybody who's interested in coaching and doesn't really, because a lot of people don't actually even know what it is. And honestly, it's different for different coaches as well, how they approach it, so that there's a place where anybody who is kind of curious about it and wants to know more, or who might be trying to find the right kind of coach for them, can go. It just seems really awesome. So
yeah,
that's really exciting to
like
me.
my tribe. It's more like my tribe because I like to talk about these things. Okay. I can talk about it like 48 hours,
Yeah. Right.
I'm just so glad to be a host on this particular collaboration, just because of the fact that I have found my own tribe and I just get to learn so much every day.
That's so nice.
And I love that maybe there are people out there too who, just like you said, maybe don't know what life coaching is and don't even know that actually this is their tribe as well, and that you don't even know yet that this is your tribe, because I didn't know before I got into life coaching just how I would feel, having someone coach me. I had no idea the moving kind of experience that it was for me. It was a very inward self-discovery kind of experience. I don't know, that when I took that experience away, I just felt like I was really changed, and not just band-aid changed, because the coaching experience really helped me to take responsibility for myself, instead of having someone tell me all the time exactly what to do. The coaching experience was more around helping me figure it out too, just, for myself as well.
And to know that you're whole and you have a strong intuition and inside what's right for you. But sometimes we just need somebody to help draw it out or reflect back to you.
Yeah.
What's in there, what you're saying that you don't even necessarily hear yourself saying.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of coaching for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right, that's all we have for this week. Thank you for taking time to listen to this episode with co-hosts Sasha and Neha, and a huge thank you to DEBORAH Donenfeld for coming along and giving us such good direction. Now, if you want to get in contact with DEBORAH, her contact information is in the show notes. And as always, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more than you know. All right, we'll see you guys next week.